Hello and welcome to Cheetah TV. My name is Brian Badger from the Cheetah Conservation Fund. In this series of videos, we're looking at all the mechanics and the nuts and bolts and the ingredients that go in to make up frontline holistic conservation. And today we're going to be looking at our ecology department. Now, ecology is a very broad spectrum subject, but it's essential to other conservation efforts because it really deals with the ecosystem and everything that's within it. So I took the opportunity to speak to Carolina Torres, who's our ecology coordinator at our centre in Namibia. If you like this video, please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel. It really does help us grow. And to learn more about this subject and any other of the subjects that CCF are involved with around the world, please visit our website at cheetah.org. In the meantime, let's hop across to Namibia and speak to Carolina. So hi Carolina, how are you doing?
Hi Brian, I'm doing well.
Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Absolutely. Hello everyone. I'm the ecology coordinator here at CCF. And I'm excited to share more about what we do here with all of you.
Great, and it's great that you can find the time, because I know how busy you are in Namibia in these strange times we find ourselves in. So ecology, I mean, that's a big word, you know, because it covers so much. Why don't you just give us some highlights of some of the projects that the ecology team is working on at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have several different projects, but I guess the most important ones are our primary ongoing research on wildlife monitoring. We do this with several different techniques, and the main ones I would say is conducting game counts. And we do these through different techniques as well. We have strip counts and we have waterhole counts, but we obviously use camera trapping, which is also a very nice way to get like a sneak peek inside into the animals' lives with minimal disturbance. That's because we're not there, so it's kind of just like a window towards the animal's life. And that way we can identify individual cheetahs, we can know different behaviors, we can understand their prey. And all of the ecology we do here at CCF is to assess the ecosystem and see if there's viable prey for the cheetahs, which we know is essential for their survival in the long term.
Yeah, so looking at the ecology of something basically is looking at the complete ecosystem. You know, it's like looking at that big bubble that everything looks in. Now, I don't apologize for emphasizing that, because, you know, some of the words that we use in conservation and in life, we just kind of accept them without fully understanding them. So you're talking about game counts, and there's three distinct ways of doing that. So you mentioned strip count. Briefly, how does that work?
Well, we have several different types of strip counts here, but let's say the one we do the most often is we do every single month. We go out into the big field area, which is one of our open fields out in our reserve. We also call it the Little Serengeti. And we basically just get on a vehicle. We have 3 designed transects, so like just 3 roads, pre-designated roads that are perpendicular to each other. I mean, parallel to each other, sorry. Mm-hmm. And we just get on a vehicle with binoculars, our data sheets, and we drive down these roads for 3 days in a row. So we have 3 repetitions of these counts, and we basically, anytime we see an animal, we stop. We count how many animals we're seeing, their demographic composition. So this means like how many adults we have of each species, how many subadults, and how many calves. And then we get the perpendicular distance from the road to the group of animals. And we use this information to estimate densities and population overall. So that way we can get, trends over time. And we do this by using distance sampling, which is one of the methodologies we apply to analyze these numbers. But then we also conduct these strip counts across all of CCF's farms we are managing at the moment. So we survey these like also designated roads, just driving around the farms, and we survey them in the morning and in the afternoon. So it's a pretty busy, like a couple of days, trying to cover as much land as we can, counting all the animals. And we end up driving around 380 kilometers. Sorry, I'm not sure how much is that in miles, but it's quite a bit of driving and field work. So yeah, we do those, you know, like every time, 3 times per year. So we know the seasonality here in Namibia. We have 3 designated seasons. We have the rainy season, which is also very hot. And then we have our hot dry season. So it's really, really dry, but it's very hot. And then we also have our cold dry season. So we do those counts, you know, and that way we can see, oh, perhaps, you know, during the rainy season, we see less animals because the grass is so long. So we cannot see them as much. They're there, but we cannot see them. And all of these little factors affect the density estimates. So it's good to have a good overall picture of how the game looks across the area throughout the entire year.
That's great, and it's very important data because CCF has been doing it for so long. You know,
exactly.
The more data that you got, the better understanding that you have of trends more than anything else. You know, increases, decreases, or just general change. And then you've got your other ones, your game counts,
Waterhole count.
definitely, waterhole count. That was the words I was looking for. Thank you. I have trouble with words. But I'm sure some people watching this have even taken part in some of the waterhole counts. But for those who haven't, just tell us about those.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do one annual waterhole count. We actually did it just a couple of weeks ago, and it was a lot of coordination due to COVID. You know, we obviously don't have the amount of volunteers, and we usually have Earth expeditions here. Really, really important group that comes every year, and we love receiving them. And they're amazing, like the support we get throughout these monitoring the waterhole counts, because basically what this entails is we are gonna survey every single water point across CCF land and sit in a hide, so like a little conspicuous construction, so we are not easily seen by animals, and we sit there for 12 hours from sunrise to sunset during the new moon. So whenever we do a waterhole count, we just look for the new moon on that month, because this is when the animals are most active during the day. So when there's a full moon, there's more light for them to see, so they're probably going to be more active and coming to water to drink water because they can see better. So they're not as scared of being ambushed by a predator. So we do this during the new moon, and it's the same. Like we sit there for 12 hours and we count every single animal that comes to the water, their demographic composition, whether they drink or whether they use a salt lick whenever there's one available. And we also are able to extrapolate a population across the property and get density estimates, precisely for what you just said, to monitor the trends over time. And this also has been we have been doing it since we started, basically since 1995. So we have a pretty good data set, and we can see the overall trends throughout the years, which is obviously there are fluctuations depending on how much rain we got that year. But overall, we see that we have like a steady increase, like over the years. Like it's very slow, but it's an increase. And the importance of this is that we're not a game fence property, right? Like all the wildlife we found on CCF land is free ranging. So it's pretty interesting to see. They basically just find themselves like a haven here whenever they arrived here, and they just decide to stay. And that is important as well, because the more prey there is available, the more likely that our predators are gonna survive, not only the cheetah, but all the other carnivore guild that we find here.
Yeah, I'm sure people that have taken part in the game counts, or the waterhole count, should I say, that's kind of a highlight for them, because there's no distractions. There's no option. You're there, you're dropped off at kind of 6 a.m. or whatever it is, and then you're there for the 12 hours, and you're watching animals. And you're watching for animals rather than watching at animals.
Yep.
But the it doesn't end there. That's if you can call it the fun bit. That's the fun bit. But processing all that data and getting it in, and kind of not manipulating it, but getting it to fit in with the previous 27 years. It's that's a big task.
Yeah, absolutely. We, like, just a few weeks ago, like I mentioned, we did our Waterhole count, and we're still entering the data into the database to get it in the format that we need, like precisely so we can compare it with previous years. It's a lot of effort, but like you say, the fun bit is like sitting out in the bush, but it's still like, it's a lot, like people underestimate, I think, the effort it goes into coordinating all of these, getting the volunteers out, making sure they're going to be safe, that there's going to be water and food. And then we come back from the field, and it's always exciting to share the different sightings, like, oh, what did you see throughout your entire day? And some people are like, it was really cold and I didn't see anything until like 5 hours in. So it's also a good bit of work, but because we can control when the animals are gonna come and drink, right? But it is fun, and we're always excited to hear all the stories afterwards, and obviously entering the data and then analyzing it and producing reports, because it wouldn't make sense for us to collect all this data and just leave it there sitting, right? We want to understand our ecosystem, and that way we can make more informed decisions.
Yeah, you were saying about the coordination, and just so people understand a little bit better, when we're talking about just CCF land, we're talking about huge expanses of land, and I think currently it's in the region of 222 square miles. So which for a city in the US, that would be the equivalent to Chicago. So, dropping people off at strategic points around that area, and then, being responsible for them because they are out in the bush, and then collecting them all again and all the data that goes with it. So it's not, it's far away from being just a 12-hour event. It goes on for, weeks leading up to it. And obviously sometimes months after it as well. So you mentioned camera traps as the third one of collecting data, and camera traps, I would imagine, is the constant. Where the waterhole counts are structured and at a certain period of time, and likewise with the strip counts, but more often. And then you've got your camera traps. So tell us a bit about the camera trapping.
Yeah, so we have two of the CCF farms are dedicated exclusively for wildlife. So this means there's no livestock farming. As we know, we have our model farm, and that takes place across most of our landscape. But we do have this smaller section that is just to see, like, how does wildlife do without any sort of competition from livestock. And obviously there is where we find our highest density of wildlife, because precisely there's no competition. But we do have obviously wildlife across the rest of our property. And so we're very interested to understand the dynamics in the reserve, what we call our reserve. And we place these camera traps at water points because that's the best way to monitor some of the, the more water dependent species. So we can see them, and you can count how many are coming to the water and drink. Basically, we can do also like kind of waterhole counts, but we can also do occupancy analysis. So whether there is a species there or is not there, wherever there's a camera, are we seeing this animal there or are we not? But we also have an ongoing play tree research. So what we call play trees is basically where the cheetahs come and scent mark. So it's kind of like their social media, right? So whenever there's a cheetah here on our property, they usually come and just investigate these trees. So they either scratch or they spray urine or they're defecating. And this is just a way of communicating between each other. Since they're solitary animals and they have huge home ranges, whenever they find these trees, they can see, okay, they use this for mating purposes, for example. If the females come to these trees, is because they are, maybe open for mating and they want to communicate that to other cheetahs that are in the area. Or in males, for example, they also use these trees to scent mark their territories. So what we do with these camera trap photos we collect is that we can identify every single individual cheetah that comes to our property. And we do also camera trap studies across the years, particularly just to estimate the cheetah densities. We've done this since 2008 as well, like on a regular basis. And yeah, we can get lots of different insights. Like I said, with the camera traps, it's really interesting that you can just be there and not disturb the animal's behavior. There's minimal disturbance. Sometimes the animals do come and rub themselves against the cameras and investigate the camera because it's something new, but we can get a lot of information from utilizing camera trap. Obviously, it requires a lot of effort as well, going out into the field and changing batteries and collecting the SD cards. But we do this, we try and stay on top of it. We go out to the reserve every Monday. We collect our camera trap data and we start sorting them into species. And then that way we can also utilize this data to analyze it.
And these camera traps, when they do collect the images and stuff, we're talking about a lot of images, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a lot of images. Sometimes during the dry season, especially at the water point camera traps, we can get just in a week, the most I've gotten is 40,000 camera trap photos in just one camera trap station. So you can imagine when we get to those amounts of photos, is quite daunting and requires a lot of organization and just like, okay, we really need to start digging into these photos if we want to get them processed. But it is a lot of photos, which obviously, like that comes coupled with storage. Like storage is crucial to manage all this data we're collecting. But it's very nice to be able to get that just sneak peek, secret insight into the animals' lives.
Like you were saying, it's totally non-invasive, so it gives you the real picture, excuse the pun, but it is a true picture of what goes on. Because even with the waterhole counts, where you're in a hide and you're as non-invasive as possible, I mean, animals do pick up scent and
Exactly.
the slightest noise and stuff, but a camera trap is just kind of inert, just sitting there on a tree, camouflaged, and a lot of the animals don't actually see it. So that's that's an incredibly valuable resource and project that goes on. So when you're processing the pictures, is it always easy to identify what you're seeing?
Well, it obviously comes with experience, right? I can see the developing of, like volunteers that start helping us with camera trap photo sorting. Since we do get a lot of these photos, sometimes we rely on, the help of our volunteers that are on site, because there's also so many other things that need to get done. But so at the beginning, you see that they come and ask more questions like, what is this species? And sometimes you get like weird angles, and he's like, is that, especially with the ungulate species, the antelopes, they're, have slight differences that make it a different species. But unless you know what those differences are, it's going to be harder to identify. But the more you do it, your eyes start kind of just seeing all these shapes. And, for example, like predators are more seen at night, and you kind of start seeing the cat shape, or like I don't know, the shape of the antelope's horns and all sorts of little details that you kind of just are learning and learn the more you do it. Same with our game counts, like it's easier to identify the species the more you do it, and you start learning the animal's behavior and how they move. And for sure there's a learning curve, but you get there pretty quickly, and once you do it more and more and more, you just identify the animals that we have here on site quite easily.
You said about when you're studying the play trees, and the cheetahs are on their huge ranges and on their passages through CCF land, and they go to the play trees, and you can identify individuals, not just the species or not just the sex, but the individuals. Share with us how you go about doing that.
Right. So cheetahs are, well, one of the very interesting species that you can identify them because of their spot pattern. So every single cheetah, we know, you see different cheetahs and they all kind of look the same. But in reality, if you look closer, this spot pattern is unique to each single cheetah. It's kind of like our fingerprint, you know, like every single human fingerprint is different. And that's how it is with cheetahs. And with time, you also start learning, like seeing differences even in their like facial expressions. We see it a lot here with our resident cheetahs, that you kind of start learning just by seeing them, you know, which individual it is. But with these wild cheetahs that we capture on camera traps, we can capture their both sides. It's ideal if you have like a photo of the same individual from two different sides, from the right side and their left side, because there are similarities with like offspring especially, and siblings. There might be some similarities, so it is easier if you have the two sides. But you know, their inside patterns, like inside their legs and their color markings, and their even sometimes their tear marks, are some are really thin, some are thicker. All of that is individual to each cheetah. So that's what makes it really interesting. We can just from a photo, we can know if we have captured this cheetah before or not.
So you're working closely with other departments within CCF. You know, like most departments, there's a lot of overlap. So with the cheetahs, you know, with the play tree studies, just taking that one alone, what would be the key departments that you would be partnering with along those lines?
Yeah, well, so the two key departments with those would be our scat dog department. So anytime we capture a cheetah on a play tree, we immediately inform the scat dog team. So it's basically Tim and Enya. Tim is our scat dog handler, and he goes out into the field and sniffs. It sends Enya to sniff around to find scat. And then with that, coupled with that, is the genetics lab. So anytime if we do find scat, and sometimes they are even like on the tree that you can see it and you don't need the dog. So we collect this scat, which is just the poop, and we send it to the genetics lab, and we can run all sorts of different analyses that gives us even a better understanding, a deeper understanding of that individual and their genetic variability and so on. So yeah, just with the play trees, you know, like there's a lot of coordination that has to go on. And same, like if Tim has found some, you know, like recent cheetah fresh scat that we know that is not an area that we are surveying, we can go out and put a camera trap up and see we maybe capture the cheetah on photos so we can identify it.
So it goes both ways, basically. You know,
Exactly.
it's not just a single chain moving forward. It's backwards and forwards, side to side, and
Yep.
just getting the same data.
Oh, and even like now that I think about it, you know, it's also if we have an individual that's often found on the property, so means that his core home range is here at CCF. We will try and capture this animal to put a satellite color on it. So that would be with our, you know, like longer ecology understanding. By having this color on the cheetah, we get an even better understanding on their movements, their home ranges, their feeding behavior. So yeah, it's kind of like goes from the basic, from camera trap to collecting scat to then potentially capturing and coloring a wild individual. So we get a better understanding of the cheetah wild population.
Well, Carolina, it's great to hear all the different facets and stuff, because again, with with some of the things, you just say camera trap or trail cameras as they're often known.
Yep.
But to get a better understanding, and it's great. So thank you very much for sparing the time and coming and joining us.
Absolutely.
And we hope to speak to you again soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same your way. Thank you very much.
If you want to learn more about that program and any of the other initiatives and projects that Cheetah Conservation Fund are undertaking, please visit our website at cheetah.org. If you like the video, please give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and set the little reminder if you want to be notified of our next and further videos explaining the fascinating world that is frontline holistic conservation. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you again next time.